You started this game. Now I play by my rules.
The security logs don't lie. That's what I tell my clients when I install surveillance systems in their million-dollar homes along Maine's rocky coastline. Numbers are cold, factual, unforgiving. At 1:44 a.m. last Tuesday, someone used the guest code to enter my house. The problem? My wife Alyssa was supposedly working late at her marketing agency downtown. I'm Franklin Dorsey, 41 years old, and paranoia pays my bills. After 15 years as a cop and another 6 running my own security consulting business, I've learned to trust my instincts. Right now, those instincts are screaming that something's rotten in my 20-year marriage. The red dress hanging on the banister should have been my first clue. Alyssa never leaves clothes lying around. She's obsessively neat. Everything in its place, every detail of her life choreographed like one of her advertising campaigns. But there it was, draped carelessly over the polished wood, still warm when I touched it at 2 in the morning. Frank? Her voice drifted down from upstairs, honey-sweet with that slight tremor she gets when she's nervous. Is that you? Who else would it be? I called back, my hand instinctively moving to where my service tool used to rest. Old habits. Just checking the locks. That's when I heard the whispers. My house sits on 3 acres overlooking Penobscot Bay, isolated enough that sound carries differently at night. The wind off the water can play tricks, but I know the difference between nature and human voices. Someone was upstairs with my wife, speaking in low, urgent tones. I climbed the stairs slowly, each creak of the old wooden steps announcing my approach. The master bedroom door was slightly ajar, spilling warm light into the hallway. Through the gap, I could see Alyssa's silhouette moving back and forth, her phone pressed to her ear. "He's coming up," she whispered. "You need to go, now." The bathroom window. I'd installed a security sensor there last year after a break-in 2 streets over, but it had been mysteriously disabled 3 weeks ago. Alyssa said she'd knocked it loose while cleaning. Another lie in what I was beginning to realize was a carefully constructed web of deception. By the time I pushed open the bedroom door, she was alone, sitting on the edge of our king-size bed in a black silk nightgown I'd never seen before. Her auburn hair was mussed, her lipstick smeared, and she had that post-coital glow that used to be reserved for me. "Working late again?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Alyssa looked up, her green eyes meeting mine without flinching. After 2 decades together, I knew all her tells, the way she touched her throat when nervous, how her left eye twitched when she lied. But tonight, she was steady as a rock. "The Morrison account is ending me," she said, standing and walking to her dresser. "We're launching their new campaign next week." "Funny thing about that," I said, pulling out my phone. "I called your office around midnight. Security guard said the building's been empty since 9. Her hand froze halfway to her jewelry box. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and I saw something I'd never seen in my wife's face before. Cold calculation. "You're checking up on me now?" She turned and her voice carried a new edge. "How very police-like of you." "Old habits," I said, especially when my security system shows someone using the guest code at 1:44 a.m. Alyssa smiled then, an expression I didn't recognize. It was predatory, almost amused. She reached behind her neck and unclasped the nightgown, letting it fall to the floor. Standing there, completely undressed, she looked like a stranger wearing my wife's face. "What's this about, Frank?" she asked, stepping closer. "Are you jealous, suspicious, or just bored?" My jaw dropped. In 20 years of marriage, Alyssa had never been this brazen, this coldly seductive. Something fundamental had changed in her, and I was just now seeing it. "I know about him," I said quietly. "Good." She walked to the closet and pulled out a robe. "Because he'll be here soon, and I want you to meet him properly." The words hit me like a physical blow. No denials, no tears, no explanations. Just cold, brutal honesty delivered with the same tone she used to discuss grocery lists. 20 years, Alyssa. 20 goddamn years. 20 years of what? She tied the robe and faced me. 20 years of your moods, your suspicions, your need to control everything around you. 20 years of feeling like I'm married to a security camera instead of a man. I walked to the bedroom safe, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. The Magnum 357 felt familiar, comforting. I'd carried it as a cop, kept it clean and ready ever since. I could end this right now, I said, not pointing the tool, but letting her see it. One bullet and your boyfriend becomes a statistic. Alyssa laughed, actually laughed. Do it, Frank. Pull that trigger and I'll make sure everyone knows you were responsible for the death of an unarmed man in cold blood. Your business, your reputation, your freedom, all gone. Or better yet, she picked up a letter opener from the dresser and held it to her own throat. Go after him and I'll end myself. Either way, you lose everything. The woman standing in front of me wasn't my wife anymore. This was someone else entirely. Someone who'd been planning this moment for God knows how long. I lowered the tool. Who is he? Jasper Dale. He owns half the commercial real estate in Portland. Old money, real power, not the small-town security guard fantasy you've been living. The name hit me like a slap. I knew Jasper Dale by reputation, 45 years old, inherited wealth, the kind of man who collected trophies. Apparently my wife was his latest acquisition. How long? 6 months, maybe longer. Does it matter? It didn't. What mattered was that she'd made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I could stay and fight for a marriage that was already dead, or I could walk away and figure out how to destroy the people who destroyed my life. I chose option 2. I'll be gone by morning, I said, holstering the tool. But this isn't over. Yes, it is, Alyssa said. And Frank, don't even think about making this difficult. I have friends now, people with influence. Cross me and you'll regret it. I packed quickly, clothes, important documents, the contents of my tool safe. 20 years of marriage reduced to 2 duffel bags and a laptop case. As I loaded everything into my truck, I found a note tucked into my shaving kit. Play nice or everything comes out. Bank records, client files. That thing in Boston you thought nobody knew about. Mem Marina Glass, Alyssa's best friend and business partner. The woman who'd been in my house dozens of times, who'd smiled at me over dinner while planning my destruction. The thing in Boston was a case from my cop days, a justified use of force incident that internal affairs had cleared but that could still be twisted in the right hands. They'd been planning this for months. I drove through the empty streets of our small coastal city, past the tourist shops and lobster shacks that defined our economy, until I reached Fisherman's Knot, a dive bar near the marina that stayed open until 3 a.m. The kind of place where ex-cops and security consultants could drink in peace. Ray Burns was there, as I knew he would be. My former partner had never adjusted well to civilian life after leaving the force. These days, he worked private security for a casino in Bangor and spent his free time at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Frank, he said as I slid onto the adjacent bar stool, you look like heck. Feel worse. I ordered a double bourbon and told him everything. Ray listened without interruption, his weathered face growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. So what's the play? He asked finally. I don't know yet, but I'm going to destroy them. All of them. Good, Ray said, raising his glass. Because that Marina woman was in here last week, drunk off her A, bragging about some big score. Said your wife wasn't the only one getting a piece of the action. What do you mean? She was talking about money, lots of it. Something about a charity scam and moving cash through your wife's agency. Apparently your boy Jasper has been very generous with his donations, if you know what I mean. I knew exactly what he meant. Tax fraud, money laundering, probably embezzlement. The kind of federal crimes that carried serious prison time. You record any of this? Ray smiled and pulled out his phone. Old habits, partner. Old habits. The next morning, I rented a small apartment above a bait shop near the marina. It wasn't much. 1 room, a kitchenette, and a view of the harbor. But it was clean, cheap, and most importantly, it gave me a perfect vantage point to watch the comings and goings at the yacht club, where Jasper Dale kept his 40-foot cigarette boat. My first order of business was intelligence gathering. 25 years in law enforcement had taught me that revenge without information was just violence, and violence without purpose was just stupidity. I needed to know everything about my enemies before I made my first move. Jasper Dale was easy to research. Born into money, educated at Harvard Business School, divorced twice with no children, His company, Dale Properties, owned shopping centers and office buildings throughout New England. On paper, he was worth about $12 million. In reality, according to the financial databases I still had access to through my security business, he was leveraged to the eyeballs and losing cash rapidly. His company was being audited by the IRS. 3 major tenants had defaulted on their leases in the past 6 months. His ex-wives had taken him for everything they could in their divorce settlements. Jasper Dale was a man in serious financial trouble, which explained his interest in my wife's marketing agency. Alyssa's business, Creative Solutions, was thriving. She'd built it from nothing over the past 8 years, landing major accounts with hotels, restaurants, and retail chains throughout Maine and New Hampshire. Her client list read like a who's who of regional commerce, and her annual revenue was approaching $2 million. More importantly, she handled marketing for several charitable organizations, including the Pine Tree Foundation, which provided scholarships for underprivileged children. It would be the perfect vehicle for money laundering. Donations coming in, marketing expenses going out, with plenty of room for creative accounting in between. I spent the next 3 days conducting surveillance, using equipment from my security business to track Alyssa's movements. She maintained her normal routine during the day, office by 8, client meetings, working lunches, but her evenings told a different story. Instead of staying late at the office as she'd claimed for months, she was meeting Jasper at various locations around the city. Expensive restaurants, his penthouse condo, and most frequently, his boat at the marina. They were careful, but not careful enough. Love makes people stupid, and lust makes them reckless. On Thursday evening, I watched through binoculars as they met at the yacht club. Alyssa arrived first, parking her BMW in the guest lot and walking quickly to the docks. She was dressed for seduction in a short black dress and heels that clicked against the wooden planks. Jasper's boat, Market Correction, was moored at the end of the main pier. It was a beautiful machine, all sleek lines and polished chrome, the kind of toy that screamed new money trying to look old. I could see lights in the cabin windows and shadows moving inside. I'd planted a listening device on Alyssa's car that morning, a small GPS tracker with audio capability that I used for insurance fraud cases. Technically legal as long as I was investigating potential criminal activity, which I was. Their conversation was illuminating. The Pine Tree transfer went through. Alyssa's voice came through my earpiece. $200,000, just like you wanted. Good girl. Jasper's voice was smooth, cultured, with the kind of accent that came from generations of privilege. And your husband? Suspicious but manageable. Marina's keeping an eye on him. I don't like loose ends, darling. Maybe it's time to tie this one off permanently. What do you mean? Nothing dramatic. Just make sure he understands the consequences of causing trouble. I'd heard enough. These people weren't just cheating on me. They were stealing money from a children's charity and discussing ways to silence me. The gloves were officially off. My first move was surgical. Jasper's Porsche Emergency was parked in the yacht club lot, a silver bullet that probably cost more than most people made in a year. I'd learned a few things about automotive sabotage during my police days, knowledge that came in handy when dealing with pills dealers who thought expensive cars made them untouchable. Sugar in the gas tank was a myth, but water in the fuel line would cause the engine to stall at the worst possible moment. A small puncture in the brake line would create a slow leak, making the brakes increasingly unreliable over time. And a dead battery in the middle of winter was just bad luck. I left a note under his windshield wiper. I see you, Captain. F. The next morning, I called in a favor from a friend at the county courthouse. Public records were exactly that, public. And a little creative research revealed some interesting facts about the Pine Tree Foundation. The charity had received over $500,000 in donations over the past year, but had only distributed about $200,000 in actual scholarships. The rest had gone to administrative costs and marketing expenses, with Creative Solutions receiving the lion's share of those payments. It was a classic shell game. Donations came in from legitimate sources, got mixed with dirty money from Jasper's failing real estate empire, and came out clean as marketing fees paid to my wife's agency. The scholarship recipients were real, but they were unwitting participants in a money laundering operation. I had enough evidence to destroy them both, but I wanted more than just criminal charges. I wanted them to suffer the way I was suffering, publicly, personally, and completely. That's when Marina Glass made her first mistake. I was having lunch at a diner downtown when she slid into the booth across from me, her bleached blonde hair perfectly styled, and her makeup applied with the precision of a mortician. She was 43 years old, but trying to look 30, the kind of woman who measured her self-worth in designer handbags and social media likes. "Hello, Frank," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I heard about you and Alyssa. I'm so sorry." "Are you?" I kept my voice neutral, my hands visible on the table. "Because from where I sit, you seem pretty involved in this whole situation." Marina's smile faltered for just a moment. "I don't know what you mean. The note in my shaving kit, the bank records you mentioned, the threats." I leaned forward. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure out who wrote it? You're paranoid, Frank. It's one of the reasons Alyssa—" "Alyssa what? Decided to steal money from sick children? Decided to be with a broke real estate developer? Decided to destroy our marriage?" Marina's mask slipped completely. "You arrogant bastard. You think you're so smart, so superior. Well, guess what? Your wife is happier than she's been in years, and richer, much richer." "Richer how?" "Jasper's been very generous. The Pine Tree Foundation has been very generous. And when the divorce is final, Creative Solutions will be worth even more." She was drunk. Not falling down drunk, but loose enough to say things she shouldn't. I activated the recording app on my phone and kept her talking. "Tell me about the foundation." I said, "It's brilliant, really. Jasper needed a way to clean up some of his less legitimate income streams. Alyssa needed capital to expand her business. The foundation needed marketing services. Everybody wins. Except the children who should be getting scholarships." Marina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, please. Those kids are getting plenty, just not all of it. Think of it as a handling fee. And what's your cut?" "Enough." She leaned back, suddenly realizing she'd said too much. "But this conversation is over." She started to stand, but I caught her wrist. "Sit down, Marina. We're not finished. Let go of me. Not until you tell me what else you know. What's this thing in Boston you mentioned in your note?" Marina's eyes widened. She tried to pull away, but I held firm. "I don't know what you're talking about. The use of force incident. The one that ended my police career. What do you think you know about it?" "I know enough." Her voice was shaking now. "I know you ended an unarmed man. I know Internal Affairs covered it up. And I know that if the right reporter got the right information, your little security business would disappear overnight." I released her wrist and sat back. "You're right about one thing. I did end a man in Boston. Want to know why?" Marina rubbed her wrist but didn't answer. "He was harming a 12-year-old girl in an abandoned warehouse. When I found them, he was choking her. So yes, I stopped him with force, multiple times. And if I had to do it again, I'd make absolutely sure he could no longer hurt anyone." The color drained from Marina's face. "You're lying. Public records, Marina. Just like the Foundation's tax filings. Just like your DUI arrest last year that Alyssa helped you cover up. Just like the embezzlement charges you're facing when I turn this recording over to the FBI." I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. "Tell Alyssa and Jasper that I said hello. And Marina, stay away from me. The next time you threaten me, I won't be nearly this polite." As I walked away, I could hear her crying. It was a beautiful sound. The recording of Marina's confession was pure gold, but I needed more than one drunk woman's admissions to bring down the entire conspiracy. I needed evidence of the money laundering, proof of Jasper's financial crimes, and most importantly, I needed to turn them against each other, for criminals are predictably stupid when they're under pressure. My next move was to hit Jasper where it hurt most, his ego. The man had built his entire identity around being successful, powerful, and untouchable. Time to show him how wrong he was. I waited until Saturday night when I knew he'd be at the marina with Alyssa. The yacht club was mostly empty except for a few die-hard boaters winterizing their vessels. Security was minimal. One guard who spent most of his time in the heated office watching television. Jasper's Porsche was in its usual spot, already showing signs of the mechanical problems I'd created. There were streaks of brake fluid on the asphalt beneath the rear wheels, and I could see that he'd had the fuel system flushed, expensive but necessary, after my water treatment. The boat was lit up like a Christmas tree, music drifting across the water from the main cabin. Through the windows, I could see Alyssa and Jasper sharing a bottle of champagne, celebrating their successful theft from the Pine Tree Foundation. I had two options. Confront them directly or continue my campaign of psychological warfare. Direct confrontation would be satisfying but ultimately pointless. They'd just deny everything and call the police. Psychological warfare, on the other hand, would make them paranoid, sloppy, and prone to mistakes. I chose a third option. The yacht club's public address system was connected to the main office, where the security guard was currently engrossed in a basketball game. It took me less than 5 minutes to bypass the lock and access the control panel. "Attention yacht club members," my voice echoed across the marina. "This is a special announcement regarding the vessel Market Correction and its passengers." Through the boat's windows, I could see Jasper and Alyssa freeze, champagne glasses halfway to their lips. The man and woman currently aboard that vessel are thieves. They have stolen money from the Pine Tree Foundation, a charity dedicated to helping underprivileged children. They are also adulterers, liars, and frauds. Jasper burst out of the cabin, his face red with rage. He was wearing a silk shirt and expensive slacks, the uniform of a man who'd never done an honest day's work in his life. The woman is Alyssa Dorsey, owner of Creative Solutions Marketing Agency. The man is Jasper Dale of Dale Properties. Together, they have embezzled over $300,000 from charitable donations. "Turn that off!" Jasper screamed, running toward the office. "Turn it off right now!" But I was already gone, slipping away in the darkness, while he pounded on the locked door. The security guard would eventually turn off the PA system, but not before half the marina had heard my announcement. By morning, the story would be all over town. The next phase of my plan required more finesse. I needed to get inside Creative Solutions and access Alyssa's computer files. Fortunately, I'd helped design the agency's security system 3 years earlier, and I still had the master codes. Sunday night, the office building was deserted except for a janitor who knew me by sight. I told him I was retrieving some personal items for Alyssa, not entirely a lie, and he let me into the Creative Solutions suite without question. The agency occupied the entire third floor of a converted warehouse downtown. Alyssa had spared no expense in the renovation: exposed brick wall, hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the harbor. It was the kind of space that impressed clients and justified high fees. Her office was in the corner, all glass and steel with a view of the water. Her computer was password protected, but I knew Alyssa well enough to guess her login credentials. She'd always used variations of our wedding date and our son Sam's birthday. I was right on the third try. Sam Frank 061. Even in the middle of her affair, she was still using our family as her password. The irony was almost funny. Her email account was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Dozens of messages between her and Jasper discussing money transfers, fake invoices, and ways to hide their activities from the IRS. More importantly, there were emails between Alyssa and Marina discussing me, my daily routine, my emotional state, and strategies for keeping me quiet. The most damaging email was from Jasper, sent just 2 days earlier. "Darling, your husband is becoming a problem. My contacts at the police department tell me he's been asking questions about the foundation. We need to consider more permanent solutions. I know people who handle these kinds of situations discreetly. Think about it. Jay." They were discussing having me ended. My own wife was considering having me removed permanently to protect her theft from a children's charity. I copied everything to a flash drive and sent copies to my personal email account. Then I did something that would have been illegal if I hadn't been the one who originally set up their security system. I installed a keylogger program that would record every keystroke on Alyssa's computer and email the logs to me daily. By the time I left the office, I had enough evidence to send both of them to federal prison for 20 years. But prison was too easy, too clean. I wanted them to suffer first. Monday morning, I called Ray Burns and asked him to meet me at Fisherman's Knot. We had work to do. "Jesus Christ," Ray said after reading through the emails. "They're talking about having you whacked. Looks that way. So what's the play? We take this to the FBI? Eventually, but first, I want to have some fun." Ray grinned, the expression transforming his weathered face. "What did you have in mind?" "Jasper Dale thinks he's untouchable because he has money and connections. Let's show him how wrong he is." We spent the next hour planning our assault on Jasper's carefully constructed life. Ray still had contacts in law enforcement, and I had access to databases that most private investigators could only dream of. Between us, we could make Jasper Dale's existence very uncomfortable. Our first target was his business. Dale Properties was already struggling, but a few well-placed phone calls to his major tenants about his financial irregularities would accelerate the process. Ray knew a reporter at the Portland Press-Herald who specialized in business corruption stories. One anonymous tip about the Pine Tree Foundation would put Jasper under a microscope. Our second target was his social standing. Jasper belonged to the Yacht Club, the Country Club, and the Chamber of Commerce. He served on the boards of 3 different charities and was a major donor to the local hospital. All of those relationships were built on his reputation as a successful businessman and philanthropist. Once that reputation was destroyed, his social network would collapse like a house of cards. Our third target was Alyssa herself. She thought she was in love with Jasper, but love based on money and status was fragile. Once Jasper's empire started crumbling, her feelings would change quickly. "This is going to be beautiful," Ray said, raising his beer bottle in a toast. "It's going to be justice," I replied. We were both right. The campaign began Tuesday morning with a phone call to Jasper's largest tenant, a regional grocery chain that leased space in 3 of his shopping centers. I identified myself as a concerned citizen and provided them with copies of the emails discussing money laundering and tax evasion. By noon, they had called an emergency meeting to discuss their lease agreements. By evening, they had hired a law firm to explore their options for breaking those leases based on moral turpitude clauses. Wednesday brought a visit from IRS investigators who had received an anonymous tip about irregularities in the Pine Tree Foundation's tax filings. They spent 4 hours at Dale Properties, leaving with boxes of financial records and a promise to return. Thursday, the Portland Press-Herald ran a front-page story about charity fraud in coastal Maine, featuring photos of both Jasper and Alyssa. The headline read, "Local businessman under investigation for embezzlement." By Friday, Jasper was desperate enough to call me directly. "You son of a witch!" His cultured voice was shaking with rage. "You're destroying everything I've worked for." "Good," I said. "How does it feel?" "This isn't over. I have resources you can't imagine. People who owe me favors. Like the people you mentioned in your email? The ones who handle problems discreetly?" The line went quiet. He hadn't expected me to know about that. "I have copies of everything, Jasper. Every email, every financial record, every threat. If anything happens to me, it all goes to the FBI automatically." "What do you want?" "I want you to suffer. I want you to lose everything, just like you made me lose everything. And I want you to know that it was me who destroyed you." I hung up and waited for his next move. It came sooner than I expected. Saturday night, I was in my apartment above the bait shop when I heard footsteps on the outside stairs. Heavy footsteps, trying to be quiet but failing. Through the window, I could see a black SUV parked across the street with its engine running. Jasper had made good on his threat. I grabbed my .357 and moved to the side of the door, waiting. The footsteps stopped outside, and I could hear whispered voices, at least 2 men, maybe 3. "Franklin Dorsey," a voice called through the door. "We need to talk." "I'm listening," I replied, keeping my tool trained on the door. "Face to face. Open up." "Not happening." "Say what you came to say." There was a pause, then the sound of metal against metal. They were picking the lock. Professionals, but not particularly good ones. The cheap deadbolt I'd installed would hold them for maybe 30 seconds. I had 2 choices. Wait for them to break in and hope I could outmaneuver them, or take the initiative. 25 years of law enforcement had taught me that hesitation gets you ended. I yanked open the door and put the barrel of my tool against the forehead of the man crouched in front of the lock. He was young, maybe 25, with the kind of muscles that come from a gym rather than honest work. "Hands where I can see them," I said quietly. His partner was standing to the left, reaching inside his jacket. I swung the tool toward him. "You too, a hole. Hands up or I paint the wall with your friend's brains." Both men raised their hands. They were dressed in black jeans and leather jackets, the uniform of wannabe tough guys who watched too many movies. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent us," the first man said. "We just want to talk." I pressed the tool harder against his skull. "Try again." Okay, Dale, Jasper, Dale. "He wants you to stop what you're doing." "What am I doing?" "The newspaper stories, the IRS investigation, all of it. He knows it's you. And if I don't stop," the second man spoke up. "He said to make you understand the consequences." I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You boys have no idea who you're dealing with, do you? We know you're an ex-cop, the first man said. We know you think you're tough. I don't think I'm tough, I said. I know I'm meaner than you are, and smarter, and better armed. To prove my point, I reached into my jacket and pulled out a second tool, a compact .40 Colt that I kept as a backup. Now I had one tool pointed at each of them. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to walk back to your SUV and drive away. You're going to tell Jasper that if he sends anyone else to threaten me, I'll end them, and then I'll end him. Are we clear? Both men nodded frantically. Good. Now get the heck out of here before I change my mind. They ran down the stairs like their asses were on fire, jumped into the SUV, and disappeared into the night. I watched them go, then called Ray Burns. They just escalated, I told him. Time to end this. What do you need? Everything we have on Jasper and Alyssa. Financial records, emails, recordings, photographs. I want it all packaged and ready to go. Where? FBI, IRS, State Police, and the Portland Press-Herald. Simultaneous delivery Monday morning. That'll destroy them both. That's the idea. But I wasn't done yet. Destroying them legally would take months, maybe years. I wanted immediate satisfaction, the kind of public humiliation that would follow them for the rest of their lives. Sunday morning, I drove to the yacht club. Jasper's boat was there, but his Porsche was gone, probably in the shop again, dealing with the mechanical problems I'd created. The marina was busy with weekend boaters, perfect for what I'd planned. I waited until I saw Alyssa's BMW pull into the parking lot. She got out wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking like the successful businesswoman she'd pretended to be. She walked quickly to the docks, her heels clicking against the pavement. I followed at a distance, staying out of sight until she boarded Jasper's boat. Through the cabin windows, I could see them embracing, probably celebrating their plan to have me ended. That's when I made my entrance. The boat's security system was one I'd installed myself 2 years earlier, when Jasper first bought the vessel. I still had the override codes, which meant I could disable the alarms and unlock the doors without triggering any warnings. I slipped aboard quietly and made my way to the main cabin. Alyssa and Jasper were sitting on the leather couch, sharing a bottle of champagne and discussing their next move. The FBI is asking questions, Alyssa was saying. Maybe we should consider cutting our losses and running. Running where? Jasper replied. They'll freeze our assets, seize our passports. We need to eliminate the source of the problem. You mean Frank? I mean your husband, yes. The men I sent last night were supposed to convince him to back off. Instead, he threatened to end them. Maybe we should take the hint and... Hello, darling, I said, stepping into the cabin with my tool drawn. Alyssa screamed and dropped her champagne glass. Jasper went for something under the couch cushions, probably a tool of his own, but stopped when I pointed my tool at his chest. Hands where I can see them, I said. Both of you. They raised their hands, their faces pale with terror. Frank, Alyssa said, her voice shaking. We can work this out. Whatever you want. What I want is justice, I said. What I want is for both of you to pay for what you've done. We haven't done anything, Jasper said, trying to sound confident. You're the one breaking into private property with the tool. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Marina's confession, followed by excerpts from their email conversations. By the time I finished, both of them looked sick. That's not admissible in court, Jasper said weakly. Maybe not, but it'll be very admissible in the court of public opinion. I held up my phone, showing them that I was live streaming to Facebook. Say hello to your friends and family, folks. We're live to about 200 people right now, and the number's growing. Alyssa lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. Sit down and shut up, or this gets much worse for both of you. She sat down, tears streaming down her face. Frank, please. I'm sorry. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Fix what? The money you stole from sick children? The affair? The plan to have me taken out? We never... Jasper started. I have recordings of everything, I said, including your conversation from 5 minutes ago about eliminating the source of the problem. The livestream viewer count was up to over 500 now. Comments were pouring in from people I knew, people they knew, strangers who'd stumbled across the feed. The story was spreading across social media in real time. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're both going to confess, on camera, to everything. The money laundering, the embezzlement, the affair, all of it. We won't do that, Jasper said. Then you'll go to prison for 20 years instead of 10. Your choice. Alyssa broke first. I did it! She sobbed. I stole money from the Pine Tree Foundation. Jasper needed cash for his business, and I needed to feel important. Needed. Loved. She looked directly into the camera. I betrayed my husband, my family, and the children who needed that money for their education. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Jasper held out longer, but the weight of evidence and the growing online audience finally broke him down. He confessed to the money laundering, the tax evasion, and finally, to hiring men to threaten me. By the time I ended the live stream, it had been viewed by over 3,000 people and shared hundreds of times. The video would be online forever, a permanent record of their crimes and their shame. You've destroyed us, Jasper said, his voice hollow. No, I replied. You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I left them there, sitting in the ruins of their lives, and walked back to my truck. My phone was ringing constantly. Reporters, friends, law enforcement officers who'd seen the live stream. I ignored them all. It was over. After months of planning and weeks of execution, my revenge was complete. Alyssa and Jasper would face federal charges for their crimes. Their reputations were destroyed beyond repair. Their relationship, built on greed and selfishness, wouldn't survive the pressure of public scrutiny and legal consequences. But the sweetest part of my victory was yet to come. Monday morning, I received a call from my lawyer. Alyssa wanted to meet to discuss the divorce settlement. She was ready to give me everything, the house, her business, our savings, even her car, in exchange for my agreement not to pursue additional criminal charges. I told him to set up the meeting for that afternoon. We met at his office downtown, a neutral location where Alyssa couldn't manipulate the situation. She looked terrible, red-eyed from crying, her perfect hair unwashed, wearing clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. Frank, she said as soon as I walked in, I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But please, I'm begging you, don't destroy what's left of my life. Your life? I sat down across from her. What about the children whose scholarships you stole? What about our son, who has to live with the shame of what his mother did? What about my life, which you tried to have ended? I never meant for it to go that far. Jasper, he convinced me that you were dangerous, that you might hurt us. So you decided to hurt me first. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I was scared and stupid and so wrong. My lawyer slid a document across the table. Mrs. Dorsey, this is the settlement agreement your husband is prepared to offer. I suggest you read it carefully. Alyssa picked up the papers with shaking hands. As she read, her face went from hopeful to shocked to devastated. You want everything, she whispered. I want what's fair, I said. You committed crimes using community property. You used our joint accounts to fund your affair. You put our family at risk with your illegal activities. In exchange for not pursuing additional civil remedies, I'm willing to accept full ownership of all marital assets. I'll have nothing left. You'll have your freedom, for now. The federal prosecutors might have different ideas. She signed the papers without another word. As we left the lawyer's office, Alyssa grabbed my arm. Frank, wait. I know this doesn't mean anything now, but I did love you. For 20 years, I really did love you. I looked at her, really looked at her, for what I knew would be the last time. The woman who'd been my wife, my partner, the mother of my child. The woman who'd betrayed everything we'd built together for money and the attention of a man who was now facing his own criminal charges. I loved you too, I said, but love without loyalty is just a lie you tell yourself to feel better about being selfish. I walked away and never looked back. 6 months later, Alyssa pleaded guilty to federal money laundering charges and was sentenced to 18 months in minimum security prison. Jasper got 5 years for organizing the scheme and an additional 2 years for witness intimidation, the threats against me. Marina Glass was charged as an accessory and received probation in exchange for her cooperation with federal prosecutors. The Pine Tree Foundation recovered most of the stolen money and implemented new oversight procedures to prevent future fraud. My security consulting business thrived, boosted by the publicity from the case. Apparently, people liked hiring someone who'd proven he could catch criminals even when they were sleeping in his own bed. I never remarried. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. But I was content with my life, my work, and the knowledge that justice had been served. Some nights, when the fog rolls in off Penobscot Bay and the foghorns echo across the water, I think about the choices that led us all to that moment on Jasper's boat. The lies, the greed, the betrayals that destroyed so many lives. But mostly I sleep well, knowing that when my wife chose war, I chose to win.